Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? It's Matt here from YoVideogames. Now, you've all probably seen the big Switch video. You know how my feelings on the system and the way Nintendo's handling it in general are, but let's not talk about that. Let's instead talk about one of my instantly most anticipated games of 2017, which is totally not coming out in 2017, and that is Xenoblade 2. I'm not going to call it Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I feel that adding Chronicles for no fucking reason to the end of it is just convoluted, makes it longer, and it's stupid. I'm just going to call it Xenoblade 2 like it should be. But anyways, so what do we know about Xenoblade 2 from the brief little trailer we got and the little bit of press kit site stuff on Nintendo's website? Well, it says a new journey to find Elysium begins now. That's basically the headline for the game on the press site. It's kind of the first thing mentioned in the trailer. But yeah, so what we get is, in the latest entry of the Xenoblade Chronicles series, a new hero will seek out Elysium on an immense journey through a brand new world. Now, that's pretty much nothing, but maybe it's something hinting at, it says brand new world, which means it's called Xenoblade 2, but it's not the same world from Xenoblade 1. Now, if you've gone through all of Xenoblade 1, you know how that right there doesn't necessarily mean it's not a direct sequel. I don't know why they would call it Xenoblade 2 unless it is the same world, because they had Xenoblade X, which was a completely different world and storyline, so possibly the same universe. So basically, without being too spoilery, it is possible to have new worlds within the universe of the first Xenoblade game without necessarily having to be a whole new series. Like, it's not like Final Fantasy where it's a completely different universe. It actually could be. It's probably going to be something similar to the Lunar games, if you recall, from Lunar 1 to Lunar 2. So that's what I'm going to go with right now. It's probably that. So anyways, let's dive into some of the more finer details of this trailer. The very, very first thing we see is the new character. His name is Rex, running across a big field. Now, immediately to his right, you can see a bunnet enemy. What is a bunnet? Well, bunnet was these little rabbits that had clubs or other weapons wrapped up at the ends of their big long tails in the very first Xenoblade game. Now, again, I'm not saying that's going to confirm that this is a Xenoblade universe, like it's connected to the first game, because enemies, it doesn't really matter. Like in Xenoblade X, there were Nopons as NPCs like Tatsu, and there was no Nopon village or any connection really to the first Xenoblade and Xenoblade X. So anyways, as you all can see as he moves ahead, there's a giant creature moving on the horizon. Now, what's cool about that is in the first Xenoblade game, one of the big defining features of the title was the two giants who were frozen in mid-battle, with the sword sticking from Mechonis into Bionis. So what's neat about this is that because it is much more powerful hardware than the Wii, we can actually see the giant creatures, assuming the game takes place on giant creatures, moving as you're playing the game. So that's actually kind of cool. I'll get into a little bit more into what I think is really going on here with that, though. There is a smaller town ahead of him. Now, why this is significant is it kind of points to the fact that there might be more than just one big city like New LA in Xenoblade X. Xenoblade X was cool in its aspect that, hey, you landed on a foreign alien world that was all wilderness, but there was only the one town you arrived in, and that was it. Xenoblade 1 had multiple towns and civilizations and NPCs and all that, so this looks like, again, it'll be closer to that aspect where it's going to be more than one town, and I think that little town on the right side at the beginning of the trailer is a good indicator that we are going to get more of a traditional RPG. I should also mention that on the press site, this is a single-player game. This is not a multiplayer title. There's no online. So, again, that's not really evidence, but just sort of leans more heavily to that this is a direct continuation of the first Xenoblade game. Now, the first thing you'll notice after the character running across the field is his face as he runs towards the camera, and then we immediately get flashed the character design, which is Masatsugi Saito. Now, I'm not familiar with this guy's work. It's not all that uncommon. They typically tend to use very traditional anime-looking character designs for these games. Now, here's the thing. This Mr. Saito here, Masatsugi, he has a very, modern-day anime look to it, I guess you could say. To me, it looked like Tales in a weird sort of way, like current-day Tales of games. So I was kind of jokingly calling this game Tales of Xenoblade for a bit. Now, I'm not overly thrilled with the character designs in this game, but I think they're better than what we got in Xenoblade X. Now, the artwork for Xenoblade X is great, but the 3D models of the artwork, which is kind of based off the original Xenogears artwork, just doesn't translate into 3D. They kind of became what I called anime potato people. So that's kind of that's kind of how I feel about it. Like, it's not the best. It's not like, the thing I think they're amazing and great, and I'm so super thrilled. I'm just happy that they look a little bit more cohesive. They look a little better fitting than Xenoblade X's, which I didn't mind Xenoblade X's, and they're okay. You can put helmets on people you didn't like, but I think this fits better, even if it is a little closer, really close actually, to a Tales of art style, or a more modern day anime series. So, I mean, that's really all I got to say on that subject. Like, better than Xenoblade X, but not overly thrilled. Don't really care. A lot of people are kind of like throwing a fit over, one, how, as they call it, generic the anime faces look, and two, how silly the clothing looks in this game. And to me, it's like, well, okay, on that second point, Xenoblade games always have lots and lots and lots of customizable clothing options. So who cares what the default clothes are for this character? You're hardly ever going to see him wearing them. And secondly, as far as just being displeased by the look of the generic anime, look, okay, guys, if that really dissuades you from playing a video game, I think you might want to check other problems you might have. Because I put up with the fucking Toon Link bullshit despite fucking hating it. I fucking hate cel-shaded Zelda looks, and I put up with that shit for fucking years. But did it stop me from buying Wind Waker day one when it came out on GameCube? No. Did it stop me from playing the other games that had Toon Link, like Minish Cap, and Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks, and all the other things? No, it didn't stop me. I'm not going to let just a character design I'm not particularly thrilled with stop me, and I'm okay with these character designs. I don't absolutely hate it and feel like I'm waiting to be taught a word in Spanish by Link. That's a Dora the Explorer reference in case you didn't get it, with Wind Waker. So fuck it, just guys, don't let character design stop you from playing a game. Again, we've moved past potato anime people. I think we can put up with just this if you really don't like it that much. Whatever, that's all I'm going to say on character designs. Now, we didn't see anything with mechs in this game, which is sort of interesting in a way, because there's kind of like half and half on mechs in Xeno titles. Xenogears obviously was a big deal. Xenoblade X was a big deal. Really wasn't. There were mechs in a way in Xenoblade, the first one, but Xenosaga was more about robots and androids, and I think this game's leaning more towards that. But what we get instead of riding on mechs is we get beast riding, as we can see him riding a big old lion thing, which is really cool because I think it also speaks to being a maybe more fantasy organic style game that Xenoblade 2 is going to be, which that's exciting to me. Beyond that, we also see sky towns, which are either powered by or have docking stations for whale ships. Now, the first thing I want to point out here is that a lot of people are saying that this title is about going from floating continent to floating continent. Maybe that's Elysium, or maybe Elysium itself is just a big floating continent, or maybe everything's on the backs of these giant flying whale creatures, and there's smaller ones you can take between them. So that intrigues me. Obviously, I'm going to be excited about that because Skies of Arcadia, one of the best RPGs ever made. But what's interesting about these whale ships is that they've been in Monolith Soft titles before. If anyone remembers, there was a game called Baiten Kaitos. So, yeah, I'm not saying there's any connection between Xenoblade 2 and Baiten Kaitos. I'm just pointing out that this has been there before. And maybe it's probably just an Easter eggy callback to those games, because that was one of their earliest titles after the first Xeno saga. So I doubt there's anything. It would be really fucking weird and crazy if they did try to connect the two universes there. And Nintendo does own, or at least has a stake in both, but I think Namco would have some say in that, so probably not. It's probably just a nod, if you will. After that, we get a shot of the composers for the game. Now, this is where it gets real fucking exciting for me. The first listed composer is Yasunori Mitsuda, and the second is Ace, followed by the other two people who I'm not familiar with. But here's why this is exciting. One, Ace was one of the primary composers with Yoko Shimomura on the first Xenoblade game. Now, Yoko is out for this title, and Yasunori Mitsuda is back in. Yasunori Mitsuda is my favorite fucking composer of all time, so this is really exciting to me. Now, he did compose the ending song for Xenoblade 1, and he's worked with Monolith Soft all throughout their career in one way or another, but he's been taking a backseat until recently. He started to come out and work directly on Valkyrie Azure for Sega, and now it looks like he's contributing to this game. What's interesting is the composition notes in the background. You can see it says Elysium of the Blue Sky, main theme for Xenoblade 2 by composed and conducted by Yasunori Mitsuda. So he's definitely doing the main theme for the game. I don't know if this is what we're hearing in the trailer. I don't know if anyone's taken the notes and tried to compose them themselves on a piano or something. That would be really cool. I haven't seen it. The amount of notes we have from the snippet in the trailer is probably only like a few seconds long, but it's still really, really, really exciting, because I think Ace did a great job, not to discredit them at all. I think Ace did a fantastic job in the work they did on the first Xenoblade, and Yasunori Mitsuda is my composing god. So him doing all, helping out with more than just one fucking song would be a huge, huge, huge win for me. And even if the game wasn't good for some reason, even though I have a hard time believing that, I could always still fall back and say it's gonna have a great soundtrack. That's without a doubt gonna have a great soundtrack. The last bit of the trailer we see is sort of an uneventful steel town, kind of reminiscent of certain areas from the first Xenoblade game, where it was really steelpunky, a lot like look to it. We see I guess these things on conveyor belts that look kind of like power cells from the first game. Again, not really a confirmation, but certainly more evidence that this might be the same universe as the first Xenoblade game. The frame rate was chugging like a motherfucker here. We see no pawns. It's all just sort of like stuff, but hey, there's going to be big towns in the game. We also see that Takahashi is back in the executive director role, which is the same role as the last two Xeno games, Xenoblade and Xenoblade X. Now, there is a director for the game, a proper director, and he's the executive director, but it's still going to be a lot of his big game here. So, that being said, what is in the text when Takahashi's name comes in? Because those are scripts. I believe the user Duckroll on NeoGAF has taken the liberty of translating some of these. Now, there's 3 different scripts, as you can see, swooshing into the screen, and one of them is a character called Van Damme explaining to the main character Rex that they're exploring and investigating an ancient ship. So Van Damme's an interesting nod, because there's a Van Damme in every Xeno game. Sometimes his name is spelled differently in the translations. This is very much a Biggs and Wedge or a Vix and Wedge situation, because, as you know, with Final Fantasy, they always had 2 characters named after Luke Skywalker's co-pilots in Star Wars: A New Hope, and in Xenoblade, they always have some reference to Jean-Claude Van Damme, Colonel Guile. Now, he's usually an older guy who works in the military. In the first 2 games, he had face painting on, like he had a cross on one and then like an X in Xenosaga. In Xenoblade games, he's usually had some sort of thick giant mustache, so usually bald or seemingly bald as well. That's like another trait for all the Van Damme characters. So it sounds like this character Van Damme in Xenoblade 2 will definitely be something related to the military, as they're sort of on a team investigating an ancient ship. As for the other character, the girl with the red hair, her name is Homura. I'm not really sure what they'll go with on the translation on that. So that's interesting. She is the Blade. Now, here's the crazy thing about it. The other page describes the other things described were their blades are the girls, from what we can tell in the trailer. The character Rex is a driver. Now, a driver uses the anime waifu blades, and the blades themselves won't die and can heal from any injury so long as the driver lives. So it's kind of like this super connection where as long as the driver's alive, as long as Rex is alive, the girl will be able to heal and fully recover herself. That's obviously a thing. There's your Xenoblade right there. That is the why the game gets the title. These blades in the trailer do look like very stylized Monado-ish blades already, so that was the first thing I noticed when I first saw the trailer. The third scene described in the text is some bathhouse scene with 3 girls being all anime and cutesy and lewd and whatever, fucking anime. people might be wondering why I'm not more upset about that, and it's to the point of like, I don't play Xenoblade games for story. I know they're anime as fuck. I know they've got chunks of story in them. I just don't care. You know why? Because these games are so much fun to play, run around and do things, explore the world. I don't really care about all the anime gobbledygook in the middle of it. So, now I'm not saying that they're necessarily all bad. There's definitely moments of the first Xenoblade game story that I did really like. It went to shit in the end, but whatever. Yeah, it seems Nintendo's got a real fucking hard-on for bathhouse scenes right now. Yeah, I guess that's the fetish at ye old Nintendo. Like, they like to watch girls bathe. Whatever. As for the translation of this game, well, here's where, it gets a little interesting. We can talk, I guess, a little bit about, is this game actually going to come out in 2017? I say no, just on gut reaction. But let's look at it this way. 8-4, the Anime McDonald's dubbing house, is not doing it. They've confirmed that on Twitter that they are not involved with this title. Now, the big rumor is that Nintendo of Europe's doing the localization. And an interesting tweet from Adam Howden, the voice of Shulk in English, is he posted a very funny video featuring John Cleese and other comedic actors talking about he knows nothing. Nothing! Like, he knows nothing! So, it's kind of like almost like a wink wink nod nod without actually confirming if he is in the game or not, because if he is in the game, that's interesting. Now, he was in Xenoblade X. He was a selectable voice for your main character, but the main character in Xenoblade X doesn't say anything but battle lines. If he is in Xenoblade 2, Xenoblade 2 is a single-player game. It has a main character. The main character's name is Rex. The girl he's in love with is Homura. He would have to be a specific role in this game. And if it is Shulk, and it is a sequel to Xenoblade, that's very interesting. That he's not saying he's in the game, but he's sort of winking that he knows nothing. So that's very interesting. Also, would hint again that they probably are dubbing it in Europe. I don't know if that leads any more credence to it being able to... Here's the thing. Xenoblade X was done probably 2 years ago. Maybe, just beyond 2... Like, look at it this way. It came out in April of 15 in Japan, which means it was probably done around February, maybe January. So it's been exactly 2 years since Xenoblade X was finished by Monolith Soft. Now, we're going to assume that if it does come out this year, it's going to be late this year, so I'm going to say about 10 months. So it's 2 years, 10 months, 2 years, 11 months, maybe even 3 years, close to it. Is that enough time for a Xenoblade 2 to be already made and developed and released? Yes, it's enough time, but there's a couple things holding me back from saying that. The only reason it could be possible is that they could have been doing preliminary work on the title as they were wrapping Xenoblade X, which is entirely possible. The other thing is that, from what we can see graphically, this is not really any more of a step up from Xenoblade X. So here's the thing, it's probably using the same goddamn engine as Xenoblade X. The battle system is probably very similar to both Xenoblade X and Xenoblade the First. So if you think about it that way, your engine's done, and your battle system's done, and you're not going to be doing any sort of crazy online DLC or online multiplayer component for this game, and you're probably going to have less design shit in general. Like, again, there's no mechs in the game, so maybe it's about just the beast riding. Maybe it's more simpler. It's more focused, streamlined, like the first Xenoblade. There's not as much crazy shit you can do in the title. If that's all true, that also takes a huge burden of time off the game development, which means that within 3 years, yeah, you could reasonably release this game. The other problem, though, is that you have to think about it. Nintendo is so fucking slow at localizing titles that aren't Zelda and Pokemon. So, like, Reggie's actually mentioned Xenoblade by name twice in interviews is coming out this year, which is good and does lead to hope for coming out this year, but holy shit, this is Nintendo we're talking about. They do spend 8+ months to localize big games like this. And again, it all just falls back into my argument of them not being a global company. But if they were, and they were bringing it out this year, that would be a huge step in the right direction, and it would make me very excited. But I don't think it's going to happen. It just feels, it's too good to be true. It could happen. I'm not going to say that's impossible, but it feels too good to be true. I guess the only other real proof is that if you look at Nintendo Switch Event's whole game lineup, and you go and you get into this fall, there's really one other title, and that's Mario Odyssey. Now, is Mario Odyssey enough to carry Nintendo through the holidays? Abso-fucking-lutely. They don't need anything else. But here's the caveat. Nintendo, besides last year, which was a fucking obvious disaster, they generally like to have more than just one title coming out after summer, because Splatoon 2 is the summer title, and then Mario Odyssey is the holiday title, and there's really nothing major first-party release between those two. Now, I'm assuming things are going to get announced at E3, but let's put it this way, assuming Pokemon Stars doesn't happen, look at this. There's no 3DS, because remember, portable and home console are combined, so there's no big 3DS games coming out this fall, because everything is now merged into the Switch development cycle, and you're only going to launch one holiday title as Mario Odyssey? Well, according to Nintendo's own press site, they're not. They're releasing Xenoblade 2 and Mario Odyssey this fall. So maybe Nintendo is pushing for it because they want to get that really hardcore gamer-style game, which, again, is really smart. The faster you can get these core game titles out to people, the better. Because remember, your early adopters are core gamers. They are not mom and pop and soccer mom and soccer dad and all these Joe Schmoes. They are the core gamers, the ones who will wait in line, the ones who will wait up all night to get a reserve on a Switch. So it's better to get that out there sooner. I think it's good to have both, obviously, and I think Nintendo does have both. They have their 1-2 Switch horse shit, ARMS. They have Splatoon 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I don't know where Smash Brothers is. I'm assuming it's coming. And Mario Odyssey, all going to be very casual-friendly games. And you also want to have the core games like Zelda and Xenoblade 2. So it's possible, but I don't think it's likely. But then again, so wrapping it all up, Xenoblade 2 is coming. It's exciting. It does have very generic anime, you know, I guess I hate using that term, but whatever. It's just modern anime style. And I'm sure this character designer will definitely make sure to have his characters look unique and different from his other work. Oh. Well, either way, it's going to be a fun-ass time just roaming through the world of Elysium or whatever else we're going to run through, and I cannot wait for this title. And when this title has a firm release date and is coming out, that's probably when I'm going to get a Switch, assuming it's this year, which it's not going to be this year, so I need to stop fucking telling myself it's going to be this year, because it's not going to be this year. But either way, this is a huge title for me. I hope it's a huge title for you, and it's just more further proof that, hey, I don't hate everything. You just think I do. Alright, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you on the channel. Later, dudes!